Avery, whose show is this? And we're live. Welcome everybody here to the Lakers Lounge Podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, senior Lakers insider, as well as lead Lakers content creator for Offside. Joined on this fine Thursday afternoon by you guys. Today on the show, we're going to run through a few topics of my own, and then I'm going to hand the keys to the show over to you. I want to talk about last night's incredible comeback that the Knicks had over the Spurs. Any opportunity we get to laugh at the Spurs, you know we are going to take it on this here platform. So we're going to talk about that. I want to talk a little bit about like what I think is the main reason that the Spurs keep on squandering those leads and faltering late, and how much that has to do with Victor Wembanyama and how critical it is for the Lakers to build quickly so that they could take advantage of these early stage issues that the Spurs are running into. So we'll talk about that. Word out of the Bay, I believe it was Monty Poole who reports for NBC, the NBC station out there in San Francisco. Word out from him is that LeBron's camp has real curiosity about playing for the Golden State Warriors next year. And I will give my thoughts on that, and the entire Golden State Warriors apparatus as a news source. So we'll discuss that a little bit. And then, yeah, like I said, I have a couple of questions from the iTunes mailbag. We have, looks like, about 8 to 10 questions from Twitter. And then however many questions that you guys are going to have here in the chat over the course of the show. A quick reminder before we dive into any of it, today's show is brought to you in live form by PrizePicks. Use that promo code HMA to get $50 worth of free lineups when you sign up. Use the code and play a $5 lineup of your own. Make sure you guys are hitting that like button, hit that share button. Please subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications for the channel, turn on notifications for YouTube so you get the notifications for the channel. Make sure you guys are hitting subscribe wherever it is that you get your podcast, preferably on Odyssey, but wherever you get them is perfectly fine with me. And if you've missed any of the episodes in the run up to this one, please go check out some of those. Really fun conversation with Trevor in yesterday's show. Really fun conversation with Harrison a couple of days ago. Yeah, just kind of chugging along. So without any further ado, we go ahead and start with last night's incredible basketball game. So obviously everybody knows how this plays out. 29-point lead that the San Antonio Spurs held in New York. You are getting these, shots from around the arena of Knicks fans sitting there with Knicks fan face going, "Oh my God, I can't believe we're doing this." And lo and behold, they start chipping. I thought that in the first half, the Spurs kind of fell victim to their own incredible shooting from deep. They were absolutely on fire, lighting Madison Square Garden ablaze. And then they cooled off. But to me, the story was that they had, and especially in going back and watching it again, it really looked like San Antonio, they were allowing shot making to mask some offensive process issues. And when the shot making faltered and the habits that they had built over the course of the game to that point continued, that's where you saw their offense just completely erode out from underneath the Spurs last night. And, credit to the Knicks, they took advantage. They built a whole bunch of momentum. They started attacking more, I thought. I liked the offensive approach from the Knicks. I think Karl Anthony Towns deserves a lot of credit for staying in the game despite his early stage foul trouble. And then you can't say enough about OG Anunoby. I truly do not understand the Finals MVP odds. I know that that's a very narrative driven award, and I know that it's going to take a lot for Jalen Brunson not to win it, but OG Anunoby has done more than enough to get himself that award at the end of the series. But yeah, that was the greatest choke job I've ever seen on that stage. It reminded me at times of the Lakers' own choke job in the finals against the Celtics. That absolutely wrecked like an entire week for me in the Irwin household. I remember that when watching that game, just telling Jen, babe, I'm gonna need a good long while. I'm just gonna go for a walk. I'm just gonna not talk to anybody. Made a few laps around the block, got back, and for like a week, I was basically in mourning because of how that game played out. And I'm sure that's how a lot of Spurs fans feel here today, and will continue to feel here moving forward. Um, the thing that really struck me though in watching that game was, and especially late, and this has been a trend here with the Spurs in this series, when the Knicks need a good look, not even a bucket, right? You excuse me, you would like to be able to say, "All right, go get me a bucket." Right? And that like that's the final stage of, greatness with these players is, and full disclosure, Mexico South Africa is on right over there. And if Mexico scores, I am probably going to run off screen. But anyway, the yeah, like there are basically stages of greatness for offensive players, right? So like a good offensive player with some help can get you a pretty good look, right? Um a great offensive player without any help can go out and get you a good look on his own. The final stage, the absolute cream of the crop offensive players, um, those are the guys who go out and get you a bucket, right? Go out and get you those 2 or 3 points that you need in that given moment. And those final couple of steps, right? The guys who can get you a good look, and then let alone the people, the guys who can get you a bucket, that those players, they have spots on the floor that they are looking to be able to get to a certain shot that they have shot millions and millions and millions of time, right? The best example of this is probably Kareem's skyhook. Remember with Kobe, it was either getting to the elbow. Remember the shot that he made against Phoenix, where the moment he got to the elbow, you're like, oh, this is over. Michael, right, his fadeaway on the baseline. LeBron has kind of developed that fadeaway on the baseline. Like those guys, they have Tim Duncan's bank shot is another one that comes to mind here. Those players, they those great players, they have certain moves that are not guardable. And by not guardable, I mean there is nothing that a defender can do to not allow that player to get a good look up there. And basically at that point, it's just hoping that player misses, right? Dirk's one-legged foot fadeaway, or one-legged fadeaway also comes to mind here too. Um, that is where Wemby, I think that's the greatest and most glaring weakness in his game, is that when he has the ball in isolation, and this is something that has really put a ceiling on San Antonio's growth and development offensively to this point. I know that Fox is kind of the focus. He was terrible and then made one of the dumbest plays any of us will ever see in shooting that layup late. But to me, Wemby is the Spurs' best player, right? And Wemby is this guy who was talked about, on this GOAT trajectory. And he could still get there. He still makes his impact on the defensive side of the ball. But if he is going to actually, join that conversation of, in that same breath with Michael, with LeBron, with, even Duncan there in San Antonio, Kobe, Magic, Shaq, Kareem. If he's gonna, arrive in that class of player, he needs to find a go-to move. And for him, with how tall he is and how well he shoots the basketball, it really shouldn't be that difficult to do. I actually think that, for him, I know this is an easy comp to make, but he needs to talk to Tim Duncan and figure out with those rocker step mid-range jumpers kind of a deal, that either whether it's going off of the glass or just going straight in, Wemby needs to be able to take that shot and build a a a collection of moves around that shot or those shots. And until he gets there, I think San Antonio is always going to have a bit of a ceiling on their offensive, especially late game offense. And this is frankly probably the best reason for the Lakers to really go for it this year. Not saying that they need convincing. The plan, from everything I'm hearing, is for the Lakers to just go for it this year. They want to go for it this year. But the Spurs and these, spots that they find themselves in, and this speed bump that they have hit, like, they aren't going to continue to hit this forever. I'm not guaranteeing that they are going to be back in the finals a whole bunch. I'm not guaranteeing that the Spurs are going to, go on some dynastic run as a result of losing in these finals. No, I just think the CBA makes the sport way too unpredictable to just take that for granted. But they are definitely going to be tougher to beat a few years down the road than they are right now, right? I'm terrified by what Dylan Harper is going to turn into. And maybe their late stage offense just needs to be Dylan Harper, right? Right now they keep on handing the keys over to De'Aaron Fox. I think it's probably time for them to hand the keys more over to Dylan Harper and allow him to create, while Wemby doesn't have these moves or that the spot that he would want to get to and all of that. Like, point being, De'Aaron Fox isn't going to be on the Spurs forever. Stephon Castle, Dylan Harper, Victor Wembanyama, all of those guys are all going to get a lot better over the next 5 years or so. So while the Lakers have this opportunity with Luka Doncic at his prime in his window, this is the offseason. I know Trevor and I talked yesterday about, hey, what happens if they run it back next year? Part of why it would be so devastating, frankly, if the Lakers did wind up running it back, would be because this is the time that you take advantage of San Antonio's youth. This is the time, potentially, with OKC facing some roster crunch because of their cap situation. This is the time you try to take advantage of them. I don't know what Denver's team is going to look like next year. The East, yes, the Knicks are great, but nobody's saying that they're on the verge of a dynasty there in New York either. So, like, this is still a wide open league. And I think here for the Lakers, while Wemby learns this stuff, while the Spurs learn from these experiences, this is when the Lakers need to strike. You know what would make it really difficult to strike? LeBron James leaving the Lakers to go to Golden State. I am of the opinion. I know that Pete and I, we really kind of hashed it out in the last hook that he and I recorded. I am of the opinion that there's just no path to winning a championship next year if LeBron James isn't on the Lakers. And I just there's so much production that you have to make up for. He is still so good at basketball that, like, if you let him go and the thought is, all right, we'll just replace him, break up his $55 million into 2 or 3 solid players. You the margin for error there is minuscule. So I would, when I hear about LeBron James having some curiosity, according to Monty Poole of NBCS San Francisco, I think is what it is. Um, when I hear about that, I do kind of say my ears do perk up and be like, I don't want to hear a lot about that. Now, really quickly before I move on and talk about what the fallout would be with LeBron potentially going to San Francisco in this hypothetical, I do also want to just really quickly say that of NBA teams out there, few franchises are covered with less ridicule locally than the Warriors are. And so frequently we just hear about these grand plans that the Warriors have, and the people who are reporting those plans never seem to push back on like, well, wait, can they actually do this? And it's what makes my buddy Sam and his co-host Andy, and I think they have I think Tommy is the third kind of co-host that they have there. But on their show, on the Light Years Pod, what makes that podcast so unique is that they do kind of stop and say, stop feeding us this drivel. Stop giving them the benefit of the doubt on these grand plans, given that they haven't done shit in a good little while, right? And so like when I saw there was some report. Now this one's a little trickier because I don't think this is from an account that I truly believe, but like I see people kind of tweeting it and quote tweeting it and aggregating it and all this stuff where it's like, oh, the Warriors, they could put a team together of Steph and Kawhi and LeBron, and it's like, how? You know, oh, well, they could trade Brandon Pajemski and they could trade Jimmy Butler and they could trade a first round pick and they could go out and get Kawhi Leonard. And it's like, why would the Clippers do that? Like, what? And so I I I'm not sitting here, doubting the specific reporting on this stuff. Sure, the Warriors are probably telling people that that's what they would like to do. And I think this is somewhat different. Monty's reporting is somewhat different here because it's coming from LeBron's camp's perspective. And the curiosity that LeBron might have in this is a little different than like the Warriors hoping to land LeBron and all of this. Like that makes it somewhat different. But I've just never seen a team get such, or I rarely see a team get so much benefit of the doubt, given that the front office that is currently making decisions there haven't really pulled off a whole bunch to warrant that benefit of the doubt. So like that, that grain of salt aside, let's talk about the fallout here of LeBron leaving, let alone leaving to Golden State. So I again want to premise this and start this off by saying, in this circumstance, the Lakers could pay LeBron James the same exact amount of money that the Warriors would be paying him here. So if LeBron was to, go to Golden State, he would be going to Golden State, taking the significant pay cut that he, allegedly and reportedly isn't interested in taking here for the Lakers. So there would be some spite involved here. And I think I think it's worth kind of hammering this point home that the Lakers have put themselves in this predicament here with LeBron, where he could leave out of spite and take significantly less and play at a number that the Lakers would love to have LeBron at. They could have a better relationship here with LeBron, but the fact of the matter remains that for the time that he has held off father time, for all of these years that he has, somehow remained as excellent a basketball player as he has remained, the Lakers have basically been plotting for their life after he is gone. And as such, I it- I honestly wouldn't hold it against LeBron to be like, no, you guys think you're going to be better off without me? Fine, let's find out. And he would, take whatever number that he would be taking here, it'd be the $14.7 million a year salary that comes with the mid-level exception that the Warriors in this hypothetical would have access to. So um before we get into the basketball fallout of what this could potentially be, I do think from like a human standpoint, this would signal and basically like a confirmation of the reporting that Baxter Holmes had on the Lakers and the tensions internally that exist, between and some of the jealousy and pettiness that exists between Jeannie Buss and the Ramby and Palinka and Clutch and, by extension, LeBron. So just from that standpoint, that would be a bit of a bummer to see this play out this way. Now, from a basketball standpoint, that's where it is no longer just a bit of a bummer if it played out this way. It would be, I think, genuinely brutal, a brutal blow to the Lakers if they lost LeBron James for nothing. It'd be one thing, if LeBron really pushes hard to make more than the mid-level exception next year, and if he goes to uh, Cleveland and they agree to some kind of either Max Strus or Jared Allen type swap, okay, at least you get some kind of rotation player immediately out of LeBron's departure. But if this is just a free agency decision and it's a number that LeBron could potentially be on the Lakers books for, helping them next year at that number, that would, seriously sting. That would be really difficult for the Lakers to overcome in their effort to actually improve this offseason. I know that the Luka and LeBron fit and the Luka LeBron Austin fit isn't perfect. I also understand that it would be, even more difficult to make up for LeBron's departure, whether that be via free agency trade or retirement next year when the Lakers have fewer assets at their disposal. But at the end of the day, if the point here is just to have the best basketball team that you could possibly put on a court next year, then I'm sorry. That basketball team has to have LeBron James on it. And I know that it's this polarizing thing, and for whatever reason, Lakers fans like can't wait for LeBron to leave. I find that stance crazy, especially given the season that he just had, where yes, it was frustrating for a solid chunk of it, maybe even most of the season, while the Lakers were trying to figure out the Luka, Austin, LeBron trio and that fit. But also we saw that final month when LeBron took that back seat and relinquished the offense to Luka and to Austin and just focused on the little things. And the Lakers took off as a basketball team because he was incredibly overqualified to play that role, but he played it nonetheless. And that's what the team is going to need next year anyway, right? Like in this hypothetical that I keep throwing out there of Giannis potentially going to the Lakers, he's going to be doing some stuff that he's probably overqualified to do. Luka next year is probably going to be doing some stuff that he feels he is overqualified to do, diving on the floor, defending his ass off, doing all of that stuff. Like those are things that all superstars have to sacrifice for if their team is going to play at the level that we're watching the Spurs and the Knicks play at right now. So like I just, when you look at LeBron being at the number that he would be at for Golden State next year, $14.7 million, you are not going to get a better basketball player at that number than LeBron James. You're just not. That player does not exist. And if the Lakers were to lose him that way, what's the plan there? Are you hoping that, you go out and maybe sign Peyton? Like, I think if you lose LeBron, your focus then has to be the wing, um, or center. Like, I think no matter what, I would still like if LeBron is gone, if he's just leaving, I think the Lakers then have to make their choice of Peyton Watson and Walker Kessler. And they would have to, sign one of those guys to a big enough offer that either the team, Utah or Denver, they don't match, or a number that would at the very least force some kind of ripple effect across the rest of the organization after that team matches. And in that case, if the Lakers, sign Peyton Watson to a big enough number, and the Nuggets decide, okay, we gotta get rid of Cam Johnson, or um, Christian Brown, or Aaron Gordon, maybe the Lakers wind up with one of those guys. But I think that would be my first move, would be to sign one of those restricted free agents. And I know it clamps up your books for a couple of days, and you still might not get one of those guys at the end of those couple of days. But like, and this is where the whole Giannis thing gets interesting. If Giannis isn't traded before draft day, which is supposedly seen around the league as like the deadline by which they have to make a decision. That's a self-imposed deadline that the Bucks would be putting on themselves. And those deadlines don't tend to hold out too long. But let's say in this case, Giannis doesn't get traded by the deadline and it extends into free agency, and we're still looking at some of these things, and the league is still held up. Well, if the whole league is held up, then it doesn't really hurt you that much if you have an offer out there that Utah or Denver is taking their time in making a decision. So I would, I like the idea of making an offer to one of those two guys and then seeing what the fallout from there would be. If that isn't how this plays out, and Giannis does get traded by draft day, and uh, you know, from there, that there's going to be players moving who aren't going to stay in Milwaukee. I don't know that Milwaukee has a need right now for Khalil Ware. I don't know, like, if Giannis goes to Minnesota, I don't know that Milwaukee has a need right now for Jaden McDaniels or Rudy Gobert, or whoever is traded in that hypothetical. If you know, I don't think this is how this is going to play out, and I think last night's game pretty much ends this as a hypothetical as well. But reportedly, the Bucks are hoping to see this finals go in the Spurs' favor, and in that hypothetical, does Mikal Bridges get moved? Hell, I mean, Mikal Bridges last night, very quietly, it's not being talked about a whole bunch. He didn't finish last night's game. They gave up all those picks, and Jose Alvarado finished the game for the Knicks last night. Does Let's go 2-0. Anyway, but yeah, like these situations, and I think that there's going to be so much moving around across the NBA this year because of the CBA, because of how wide open the league is. I think that this offseason is one of those rare off seasons where you can have your money tied up for a day or so in a restricted free agent. And for those guys, yeah, like I would probably say it's worth it to wait for those guys. So that's where I would start. Then I would see what the fallout would be for Giannis, and then I would see, if you lose LeBron, I think you kind of sort of have to bring back Rui. I would want Rui shooting regardless, but Rui has looked really effing good in games that LeBron didn't play in. There's been that overlap with the positions that both of those guys play. And I think in this case, if LeBron does go up to the Bay, I think the Lakers would look to retain Rui. That does cut into their usable cap space. But you would still have enough of it left over, especially if the decision is made relatively quickly on Rui. You would have enough of it left over that you could still do something meaningful with it. Um, I I believe that Rui's number probably comes in the low 20s. And there is a bit of a market out there for him, a player of his size who can shoot the way that he does, even though the volume isn't necessarily where teams would like it to be. I think he probably gets a slight raise next year, and that falls well within, I think, the Lakers' budget for him. So if the Lakers lose LeBron, I think you got to bring back Rui, and you hope that you can, actually improve your team despite starting the offseason with that big of a step back in terms of raw talent. I really hope that isn't how this plays out, though. I still don't necessarily see it. I don't know that LeBron would want to play his farewell tour in Steph's city. Um, but if Steph is putting on the full court press, and if the Bay is willing to be as if the Warriors are as willing to be as flexible as they're reportedly willing to be with LeBron, maybe, just maybe. I just think that would, if LeBron goes to Golden State for that number, that would be as much of him signaling frustrations there at the end with the Lakers as much as it is, or it would be, a basketball decision by LeBron. He wouldn't have a better shot at a championship next year in Golden State than he would have next year with the Lakers. So um I just think it makes the most sense for everybody involved for LeBron to be back. That's why I still think he's going to be back. But I do think that we can't fully ignore these reports coming from the Bay, even though I think a lot of the reports coming from the Bay, you know, don't involve enough critical thinking. All right. So let's go ahead and dive on into your guys' questions. We start, as always. I'm going to take a look in the comment section to see if we have any super comments that I would start with. We do. So I will keep well, all right. Well, this one's kind of tough because I just spent the whole last. I'll answer this one really quickly and then we'll move on. All right, Addison Hoover asking, what's the latest on LeBron James? The latest in terms of what I'm actually hearing is that, he and his people are still kind of scouring the league to see what kind of situation they can find that checks the most boxes for them. Their priorities, or his priorities, as he has said, is he wants to play for a championship, and he wants to play in a city that his family would be comfortable in. And then from there, I think, the number that he plays at, the salary that he plays at next year, obviously is going to matter quite a bit. And I think as a result of all of that, he basically only has 3 teams, I would say, that he can take all that seriously. Maybe 4 if you consider New York. I don't think that, I think New York is on their way to winning a championship. I don't think LeBron would want to play for a reigning champion New York Knicks team, but who knows? I've always thought that the Lakers are the likeliest of the teams that he would play for next year. Then I would say Cleveland is next, and finally the Warriors are like the other team that we need to keep an eye on. And then I do also think, because of the number that we're talking about from a lot of these teams, I do also think that retirement isn't something that we can completely write off. Oh, another chance. That's in the box. No way. They already picked up a red card. Like, what they're capable of. He's on. Yeah, it's a bit of a flop. I mean, he doesn't play the ball at all. Should note that. Anyway, sorry guys. Yeah, The latest on LeBron James is that, it's between those 3 teams. I think the Lakers are the likeliest. Cavs are second likeliest, and Warriors are third, with retirement being something that we can't completely write off. I know that everybody thinks that he would, and I would mostly agree, but I think everybody kind of thinks LeBron would never retire without a retirement tour. But if he isn't going to necessarily get a particularly good one next year anyway, and in order to play or play out that retirement tour, he would have to, play at a number significantly below his market value. LeBron's prideful enough that I think we need to take retirement into account as a possibility here as well. So, um, yeah, that's where things kind of stand. And I do think it's a very fluid situation, that those, like, when we hear that the James camp and LeBron and Clutch and everybody is, they're really weighing all their options. Based on everything I'm hearing, that is absolutely true. Like that is not, just kind of uh an empty threat. He really is looking around the league to see what situation makes the most sense for him. I am just of the opinion, and I'm biased, but I'm of the opinion that the Lakers make the most sense for him, just as he makes most sense for the Lakers at the number that he's probably going to be playing at next year. All right. Let's see. Man, recording this during the World Cup was a mistake. I'm just going to go out and say that. All right. So the first question that we have here from the iTunes mailbag, this is from DeReal3D, who writes, "Hey, Anthony, I've seen a lot of discourse about how the Lakers should push to acquire Giannis, but I haven't seen much discourse on what the rest of the roster would look like after that. How do you envision the rest of the roster looking if the Lakers acquire Giannis with and without LeBron? Also, would the Lakers be able to keep Rui if they go after Giannis?" All right. So, um, without getting too deep into the weeds here, and at some point maybe I can bring a capologist. I love having Yossi on, and I haven't had him on in a long time. So maybe at some point we'll run through some hypotheticals with him so he can kind of talk you through like the actual minutia of the cap and how this would all work. But basically, to keep this as simple as possible while also being true, if the Lakers were to trade for Giannis, they would basically go to Milwaukee and say, "Hey, how big of a trade exception do you want? How much money are you looking to get off?" Right? And so, um, if the Lakers were to trade, say, like Giannis is making Giannis Antetokounmpo contract. So Giannis is on the books next year for $58 million, right? If the Lakers renounce LeBron and renounce Rui, they would have just about enough cap room to take Giannis into that cap room, while sending back, like Dalton or Vando or something like that, right? A smaller contract. Now, would that be enough for Milwaukee? That's a completely separate conversation. But in terms of like how could the Lakers, like in this scenario, they lose Rui outright, because I think Rui is going to sign for more than the mid-level exception. And once you renounce Rui, you can no longer go above the cap to re-sign him. And that means you are limited to exceptions on him. And I think he's going to make more than the exception next season. So, and by the way, like, you only have one mid-level exception that you could use here. And that, is probably, if you would then have to choose between LeBron and Rui, unless LeBron would be willing to make less than the exception. That changes the math on what you could potentially do there. Now, as far as filling out the rest of the roster here, it just depends on who goes out, right? Like if Milwaukee is willing to take Vando's contract back, or some other team is willing to take Vando's contract, that frees you up a little bit financially, but that does impact like your actual roster for next year. Say what you will about Vando, but I think he's an NBA rotation player, and losing him for the sake of dumping salary would make you a little bit worse. So I would actually like to see if the Lakers could, if you just keep it to like Dalton and you know, some smaller contract there. Um and you take Giannis completely into your cap space, and from there you already have Jake. You have Jake on your roster. You would have Luca on your roster. You would have Giannis on your roster. You would re-sign Austin Reeves. Um, and he probably would be back in this hypothetical. Hopefully, here you have Marcus opting out and then maybe signing to a smaller exception. I don't think there's a world where the Lakers can bank on DeAndre Ayton opting out. So I think he's probably back no matter what. You could use you again. You can go above the cap to sign Jackson Hayes, who has a really small cap hold anyway. So you could, he would probably be back in this hypothetical. And now you have, and then Bronny, who has a small non-guaranteed contract that I think the Lakers would be wise to keep around. Um, and you would have whatever whoever you use the 25th. Nope, in this you'd probably be trading the 25th pick. This would probably have to happen on draft day. So you trade the 25th pick probably, as well as the future picks that you have access to, and that basically rounds out your roster. It's not very deep. You would have to hope for a lot of guys signing for the minimum in their hopes of signing a bigger contract after competing for a championship on that Lakers team. But I think there's a route there to depth after trading for Giannis. It just involves some help from some other free agents that you tend to get anyway when you're the Lakers and when you employ two superstars like Luca and like Giannis. And then like the final help that you could potentially get there, like we talked about LeBron in the last segment. LeBron says the things that matter most to him are competing for a championship and playing in a city where his family feels comfortable. His family loves Los Angeles, and there is no better circumstance in terms of championship aspirations than on a team with Luca and Giannis next year. And if the Lakers, build out their roster that way and they say, LeBron, this is what we can offer you, with having already done all of that work across our roster elsewhere. Are you interested in that? And you see what he says. I think at that point he would have to seriously consider it, but he also might say, you know what? I want to make, the little bit more than I can in Cleveland, in Golden State, in New York, or whatever. But yeah, I think that in this world, you like the I guess I don't necessarily agree with all of the concern about the Lakers' depth after you trade for Giannis. It would come with a couple of gambles. It would be some buy low candidates and all of that. But I still think that you can arrive at a little bit of depth on your roster even after pulling off that kind of a deal. All right. The next question here comes from Q Breezy 12, who writes, with Rob putting so much pressure on this summer, should we be worried about him being desperate if a deal doesn't fall in his lap, or would he continue to lean towards inaction as he has in the past? What's your confidence level he actually builds a contender, something he hasn't done in a half decade since 2021? Yeah, I look, we have seen Genie step in with Jim Buss, like the final straw when Jim Buss was fired, reportedly at the time. I wasn't reporting or covering the Lakers really much back then, but um, the the final straw, depending on who you listen to, there was Jeannie getting wind that the Lakers were getting ready to trade for DeMarcus Cousins. And Jim was doing that, and Mitch, those guys were doing that basically. And Mitch, if I remember correctly, was like pushing back on it. Jim really, really wanted to do this, but he wanted to do this so that the Lakers could make the playoffs, and Jim's like promise to the fan base would have been fulfilled. Jeannie caught wind of it, said, "Nope, not doing that." Fired people, and everybody moved on. And now it's weird to say this. I think it's true, but I think Jeannie would be more hesitant to fire Rob Pelinka than she was even with Jim Buss, her brother. But I think that's probably true. But I think if Jeannie and Mark Walter, more importantly, were to find out that Rob was going to make some kind of desperation move late in the offseason after not necessarily having the summer that he was hoping for, in the hopes of saving his job, I think the Lakers would probably step in, say, "Rob, you tried. It's time we go our separate ways here." Before the Lakers would make some kind of desperation move that would really put them in a tough spot moving forward. So I'm not too worried about that scenario playing out. Now, as far as like inaction, productive inaction, however you want to phrase it, however Rob Pelinka would try to sell it, that is something that I'm a little more nervous about. I do really believe in this like 3-year window that, people behind the scenes are kind of saying Jeannie negotiated for herself. And if there is like that 2 or 3 year window, then technically speaking, Rob would have another couple of transaction cycles and transaction windows to improve the roster from there. So maybe, if he was to convince Jeannie, hey, the moves that we were hoping for, they didn't play out the way that we were hoping. What do you think about keeping our powder dry, trying this again? I think Jeannie would go along with that, so long as it's Rob selling her on that. And that is the scenario here that I am more nervous about. I don't think the Lakers can afford to run it back next year. Despite Trevor and my conversation from yesterday, I hope you guys picked up on the tone. I don't love the idea of doing that. We know that team wasn't good enough. Yes, they played well towards the end of the year, but nobody thought to themselves, okay, yeah, this is a team that is on par with OKC, San Antonio, and now apparently the Knicks. Plus Boston's going to be better next year, and so on and so forth. So I think that this notion of well, wait, what does Rob do as he nears the end of his rope? I'm a lot more nervous about him comfortably saying, yeah, we can just ride this thing out, than I am him saying like, oh gosh, I got to do something. I don't necessarily see the latter part. All right, the next question here, I'm going to answer a few from Twitter and then get up out of here. As it looks, wow, I missed that. South Africa lost another player. Stop being dirty. What are you guys doing? So let's see. I have all right, so I'm gonna go in order that I got these. At Champs Papa 1015. Can they just tear it up? No point being the 3 or 4 seed, realistically the 5th, and then getting bombed by the Thunder and Spurs every year. That's 2000s Wizards, 2010s Hawks territory. Well, it's really difficult to blow it up without trading Luka. So unless you're willing to trade Luka, and not have your like control of your picks after you trade Luka, I don't necessarily see that. I I think in any kind of blow it up situation here, I think you're probably looking at like basically Rob Pelinka looking at the roster as just Luka and everybody got to go. Um, I think that's an extremely unlikely scenario, but I do think that like I would prefer that scenario to running this team back. I would prefer just wholesale change. Maybe you take a step back, but you actually build a roster around Luca. Like I would prefer that over, well, maybe next year we'll be healthy. I no, I would much rather, blow it up even to the extent that it's not necessarily blowing it up because you're not trading Luca, but blowing it up from the standpoint of like the entire supporting cast that the Lakers had built for the, as a temporary structure anyway, blow that group up, take a couple of transaction cycles, actually grab, players who fit more long term with Luca and go go that route. That makes a lot more sense to me. I don't think it would happen. I think Austin is back next year. As are like, the people who are under contract for next season. But I really, really, really don't want to run it back. That's basically the point of this segment. Don't do that. Next question here comes from let's see, at God 91 excuse me, IN. Ideal Lakers starting five when the offseason is done, when Rob Pelinka makes the moves that need to be done. Ooh, ideal? Like ideal? All right. I can have some fun with this. Ideally, you're starting with Austin, Luca, Giannis, LeBron, and Ayton. Ideally. Um, you said ideally, you didn't say realistically. Ideally, that is the starting five next year. And then you close games with Luca. No, I guess Austin, Luca, Austin, Marcus, Luca, LeBron, and Giannis. Um, that would be my closing lineup in this ideal scenario here, right? And in this idealistic world where everything went great, right? You have Jackson coming off of your bench. I think you probably have to trade Duthero in this hypothetical. You probably also are trading Dalton Connect in this hypothetical. So those guys are probably both gone. Vando is back in this hypothetical. Jake LaRavia is still on the team in this hypothetical. And then from there, you see what minimum contracts that you can sign to fill out the rest of your roster. That would be my ideal starting five. Not realistic, not saying it's happening, but if I had if this was 2K and I could turn, auto trade on and force teams to accept offers and stuff like that, that's what I would do there is I would acquire Giannis and I would make a sprint at it for, the next season or two. And then, as Giannis ages and stuff like that, and depending on how guys fit around those guys, then you kind of adjust accordingly. But I just think like there's a real opportunity for the next couple of years here that the Lakers really should be focused on maximizing. And I would go with that as my ideal outcome of the offseason. Wait a second. Mexico you gave Mexico a red card in Mexico? Are you insane? I didn't see the play. I've been focused on my ideal offseason, so I'll go back and find that play. But that's a dangerous proposition for the referee there. Like, that is a brave referee. Let's see. Rashawn, since we've been talking about LeBron a lot in this episode, I'll go ahead and answer this one. Rashawn asks, what is your Anthony Irwin's walkaway number for LeBron? Oh, man. See, this puts me in an impossible spot because no matter what number I give right now, it's going to be offensive to LeBron fans. So, like, LeBron fans, cover your ears. How about this? Like, I'm going to say a number right now. Just cover your ears. Pay attention to the free kick that South Africa is about to take up. They took it, so you missed that as an option. But like, let's just no offense, LeBron fans. I swear I'm just answering a question that I was asked. My walkaway number for LeBron would be 20 million. And the reason it's 20 million is because that is a sizable enough gap between or raise over the most that like Golden State or Cleveland or New York or any of these other teams that he would realistically want to play for. That is enough more that it's not offensive to LeBron. It's a low enough number that you could still have a big old chunk of cap space with. And I think that's that's the I'm also saying $20 million, granting that that is offensively low for LeBron. Like, he is worth way more than that, not just in terms of basketball, but also because of the revenue that he's about to generate for whatever team he's going to play for while he is on this, retirement tour. So I'm granting that it is offensive. Like, that number is way too low, but I'm also trying to build out the best Lakers roster that I can. And that's the number that I would walk away at. Anything more than that, I would start to get uncomfortable. And I've heard anywhere in the ballpark of like 25 to 27 is kind of like, the Lakers walk away number. But I probably wouldn't go too much higher than 20. I'm sorry. LeBron fans, I'm sorry. Let's go. Let's check the chat here, see how I'm doing. I'm sorry. Again, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Oh, we got another super comment here. Micah Claiborne writes, would love for us to get in on a 3-teamer with the Bucks and Heat and get Jaquez back to LA where he belongs. I like this as I'm wearing my Jaquez UCLA jersey. Still so pissed we passed on him. It's not just that the Lakers passed on him that pissed me off. It's that this dude played for UCLA in your backyard. He won a bunch in your backyard, and you didn't even bring him in for an individual workout, even though you knew he was going to be in the window that you were going to be picking it. Absolutely astounding from the Lakers that they didn't even consider that. A Mexican player's jersey in LA would break records for sales. I'm not even kidding, especially given the rookie season that Jaquez had, and then the season that he had again last year. I'm 100% with you there, Micah. I think Jaquez is a little too old for Milwaukee if they dive into any kind of a rebuild after trading Giannis. I do think that there is a world where the Lakers could give up a pick and have him be rerouted to the Lakers. He plays a position that I think the Lakers will be looking to add somebody at anyway. I think this makes all the sense in the world. And really, really hope that the Lakers take it a lot more seriously than they did Jaquez as a prospect when he was coming out of college. I'm not even like, he's one of the more successful UCLA players in modern history. He was a huge and integral part in a couple deep March Madness runs. Yeah, and they worked him out. Like, I guess he was part of a group workout, but no like individual workouts for him. Just absolutely insane. Insane that they didn't do that. And they have the opportunity here to kind of make up for that. So, Micah, I am 100% with you on that one, especially if the Lakers operate using their cap space. You could basically just take Jaquez into your cap space, send whatever draft compensation that you need out, and I think he would start for the Lakers next year. I would really like to see. It's not the most athletic, and I know that it would still have some question marks about it, but a starting lineup with Luka, Austin, Jaquez, and then you need to get really athletic with your 4 and 5 spots at that point. But I'm intrigued. I would love to see it though. That was a great great idea. All right, we won. All right, so let's see. We will go one more question here. Jen just called because she is out of work. This is a funny one. Trip Before C writes, is Steph Curry's first recruiting attempt on LeBron his GOAT movie? Or would that be a hindrance since he made LeBron a washed player who couldn't win? I haven't seen GOAT. I put it on for the kids today while I was doing a little bit of work. I haven't seen it yet. But I look for. Did he really like make LeBron a like he had like a LeBron stand-in in that movie? Somebody help me out. Like, somebody help me out and tell me whether or not that's true. I will watch that movie right now if that is actually true. Just a quick addition to the last segment. What about Juan Toscano Anderson? He kind of counted, like, as far as like him being Mexican, but he wasn't good. Hawkins is good. Like, he's a good basketball player. And if you had a good basketball player who happens to be Mexican, born and raised in Southern California, that jersey would do bonkers numbers. Bonkers, especially like UCLA background. Oh man, I'm getting pumped thinking about it. I'm going to be let down when we find out Rob still hasn't seen him play. But yeah, that would be awesome. But no, that'd be incredible if Steph was like, no, LeBron, that's not you. Can we edit that? All right, that's going to do it here for this episode of the Lakers Lounge podcast. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. A reminder, today's show is brought to you in video form by Prize Picks. Use that promo code HMA and set a $5 lineup of your own for $50 worth of free lineups. Make sure you guys are hitting that like button, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, subscribe to the pod, all of that good stuff. Have a great rest of your day. Make somebody else's, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.